Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I have a couple of cards in this video today, so get comfy and let's get crafty. So last week I used this stamp set to do some coloring for my crime and coloring video, and I actually ended up stamping a second set of images and coloring them as well, and now I'm going to turn them into cards. I have some cards I need to create for school things, and so I'm going to use this stamp set because why not? It's a school stamp set. I cut them out with my brother's Scan and Cut, and I am going to go around the edges with my Sharpie marker. Now I am doing that completely off camera, but for two reasons. Sometimes the Scan and Cut doesn't line up perfectly, and also it just makes it look a little more finished to have those edges not white. So now they're all cut out and they've been edged and they look perfect. And I have some pre-made card bases and some lined paper. This is a 12 by 12 scrapbook paper that looks like school paper kind of. So I am going to cut this down into 4 by 5 and 1/4 inch pieces of paper so that I can use them on my card front. Out of a 12 by 12 inch piece of paper, I will get 6 panels for my card. Excuse the outside noise if you hear the lawnmower kicking up. My husband's just trying to get the lawn finished before we get another dose of rain coming through here, and he's right outside my window, so sorry if you can hear that. I ended up making 3 cards with these images, and then my son wanted to use all of the images on one card for a card for his teacher. So even though I have 6 panels cut here, I ended up only making 4 cards. And I only did 3 in this video. The 4th one I did not videotape because it was completely different, and I forgot to turn the camera back on. Let's be serious. I just forgot to turn the camera back on. All right, so I've zoomed out just a little bit so you can see my desktop there, and my lights are reflecting in my glass mat, which is about the only thing I hate about this glass worktop, is that my lights reflect really badly. So I have a fox, a bear, and 2 mice that are in this stamp set. And then there are some accessories. There is a pencil, an apple, a lunchbox, and a school bus. The first time I stamped them, I did not stamp the school bus because I was using a small piece of paper and it didn't fit. And the second time I stamped them, it did, or vice versa. I think the first time I stamped them, it did fit, and the second time it didn't, but whatever. So this was my original plan, to make 2 of each card. But like I said, my son saw them and wanted to make a card for his teacher, so we went with it. So my plan for the little mice is to have them both hoisting up this pencil because, you know, it's giant compared to these little mice. And I'm looking at this, the tininess of the characters or the images and the big piece of lined paper, and decided it was just a little bit too big, even with the sentiments I want to stamp. I want to stamp this, "You're an A+ kind of," and then it has 2 sentiments here to go with it, and I'm going to use the one that says teacher. But even with the 2 sentiments, there's still a lot of pattern paper. So I decided to pull out my Waffle Flower A2 layer dies, and I didn't even measure what size this ended up being, which die I ended up choosing. I just put my focal images, my little die cuts, in the middle of this paper and I grabbed one and it looked good. I think that it ends up being like 3 3/4 by 5 inches, but I don't know. I did not measure. Sorry. I was just kind of playing. I had these images, like a lot of the images that I have colored for my crime and coloring videos, I have not done anything with. So I have these papers of colored images that I need to turn into cards because I've got a stack of them. And so that's kind of what I did. I was just playing. But anyway, I ran this pattern paper through my die cut machine with that die, and then I'm going to go ahead and reposition the pencil and the mice onto my pattern paper so that I can decide where I'm putting the sentiment. Like I said, I want to use I lied. I'm not doing the sentiment yet. I decided I wanted to do a border. So I pulled out this punch I have. It says ABC 123 and a piece of yellow cardstock. This is a 1/4 sheet of cardstock. So it's 4 1/4 inches by 5 inches or 5 1/2 inches. And when you punch this border into the cardstock, it makes it 4 by 5.5 inches. So I did have to trim off the top and bottom to make it fit the card front with equal proportions. And these old style punches are really cool because they have that design right on the stamp. So you just line up the already punched pieces with the template, so to speak, and they're super easy to use. So I didn't know exactly now what I wanted to do. Do I want to put it on the top? Do I want to put it on the side? I couldn't put it on the bottom really because then they'd be upside down. And this is when I decided to just trim it down and make it a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of paper. So then I have a double layer card front. So I kind of fidgeted with it, and this is, I realized, oh, it's just shy of 4 inches, probably because my paper was not punched straight. So I just trimmed off that edge, and then I kind of, I took about 1/8 of an inch off of each end so that it was, I probably could have just cut off either the A or the 3, but in my brain, I needed to cut them both equally. I don't know, whatever, right? So, because I ended up just cutting that A off almost entirely. Sometimes in my mind, when I do sit down and do the math, it just is extra work, which is why most of the time I don't measure, I just guess. So I am going to adhere this panel to my card front, and then I will put the pattern paper on the top of that, and then I will add my mice and my pencil and my sentiment. I did decide that I needed to do the stamping before I glued anything down, because if I mess up the sentiment, then I can get another piece of paper and restamp it. I don't want to have all my panels attached and then jack up the sentiment, right? So I'm going to go ahead and add my little mice back on here so that I kind of know where to place the sentiment stamps. This is what I said I was doing before. Yeah, I'm really doing that this time. I'm going to first stamp the "You're an A+ kind of" in the kind of block font. And I want to put that right on one of the lines. In my brain, that was genius, right? I'm using lined paper. I can stamp it right on the line. But the rest of the sentiment doesn't quite fit. So yeah, whatever. You just go with the flow, right? I was just playing. I wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel. I was just playing. I am going to use my VersaFine VersaClair Nocturne Black ink. I did not zoom back out, but now you will get an up-close view of what a good job this ink does in stamping without having to restamp sentiments more than one time, which is why I like it. It does take a minute to dry, and so I have to be patient, or I have to use my heat gun to dry it. I am barely touching the lid to my Misty. I'm not pushing down at all, and it's just beautiful. It's stamped beautifully. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of snuggle the word teacher in here. I'm going to try and get the tall part of the T in between that A and A+, or an and A+, and stamp it in the same ink right here at the bottom. I am making sure to reposition my paper because it did stick to that stamp just a little bit, and I didn't want it to move out of the way too much. But again, barely touching the lid to my Misty, and it's beautifully stamped every time. So now it is time to assemble the card, and I am going to use my ATG gun. And I did remember to zoom back out here a little bit so you could see what was going on. I did find on Amazon some non-Scotch ATG refill tapes that were a fraction of the price, and they seem to be holding up really well. However, I don't have the same amount of, oops, this isn't straight time. Once it's down, it's down. I can't really peel the paper, the layers up without damaging the paper the way I can with the Scotch refill. So, hit and miss, right? There's good things about it. It costs less. There's bad things. There's less oops time involved. But that's okay. So I have my die cut card panel down, and now I am going to adhere the stamped panel. I'm, again, just using my ATG gun. And this is the back side of that lined paper. I think it's an old Stampin' Up! Paper. It was just one that I knew I had in my stash that looked like lined paper, and I had kept it because it looked like lined paper. And I decided I need to stop hoarding the paper and just use the paper, right? And I'm being very careful not to smear that sentiment by slapping my hand over the top of it. I am going to add my mice and the pencil back to the front of this card. Trying to make it look like they're standing on those words. And it's a little bit hard to do because they are little and they are fiddly and, you know, little things, they move around, they like to stick to your fingers, all that stuff, right? But once I get them positioned properly and where I want them to be, I am going to pull out a piece of Glad Press and Seal. Yeah, that stuff that you're supposed to use in your kitchen. I don't think I actually use it in my kitchen, like ever. I think it's always only in my craft room. So I have a piece of Glad Press and Seal here, and I'm laying it down carefully, and then I'm going to use the sticky side to pick up those images so that I can add glue to the back of them and glue them all down all at the same time. This kind of helps me keep that liquid glue off my fingers, which is a plus because we all know that I am super messy with the liquid glue. And while I love what it does for my projects, I hate what it does for my fingers. So, you know, I'm just a mess. So I can put the glue on there and I can reposition it over the top of my card and push it down a little bit with my fingers. And after giving it a couple of seconds or, 30 seconds or so to grip, I can carefully peel that press and seal right back off the images, and they are perfectly adhered. So it's one of those craft room tools that was never intended to be used in the craft room, I'm sure, but it is a perfect craft room tool. Okay, so one thing I like to do with these stamped images is I like to take a black Jelly Roll the Glaze pen and make their eyes a little bit bigger. And then when the black is dry, I will go back through with a white pen and put the little whites of their eyes in. I did edit out the entirety of the other two cards, but they're set up the same way. Edge die, same sentiment, different colors of paper. I can't decide which one's my favorite. Here is a picture of the three of them, and then some zoomed in shots of each one of the characters with the whites of their eyes and the freckles on their face. So super cute stamp set. I kind of love these kind of color them all and make easy card stamp sets. So thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a couple of other things here I think you might like to watch, as well as a subscribe button. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did so. Do me a favor, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and have a really great day.